and preparing yourselves for the exciting opportunity that you have this summer to travel on Smith College sponsored opportunities. So that's pretty broadly defined, and I tried my best. I know that there are definitely not everyone on campus who's doing something this summer related to Smith activities is in the room, and I was able to invite them. But you in the room here are receiving funds from Smith. You've been coordinating your opportunity through one of the centers or offices here. And I believe that pretty much sums it up. So IEG recipients, folks from the design thinking, I feel like that's this cohort right here, maybe both tables potentially spreading out. So cool, interesting internship opportunities, and then praxis as well. So onesies and twosies, but also, well, yeah, IEG recipients I mentioned. You're going to various different summer opportunities, and that's all really exciting. Today we're here to talk though about the maybe less exciting aspects, but as important to prepare for going, are health and safety. And from my perspective, I've run programs like what you'll be attending, managing sort of on the ground logistics for internship programs in the summer, for programs that travel, for programs that stay pretty well put, for about 6 years prior to the pandemic, and now excited to do so once again here at Smith this summer, but from afar. I'll be here, you'll be doing your cool things abroad, and you'll have to tell me all the stories later. So what we're going to cover today is basically a brief overview, not everything that you see on the screen there, insurance, Title IX, medications, just sort of self-care, broadly speaking, money and budgeting, and bringing the learning home. Not all of that will be addressed to, I don't expect to be perfect today. It won't all be addressed to maybe as great as detail as you might like. And so after this session, if you have further questions or you wanted to just dive into one of the topics a little bit more around, you know, any of the topics, then please, it's always welcome. And both Lisa, who will be joining us soon, Lisa Johnson, our associate dean for international study, and myself are happy to have conversations about any of these things at any point. So to kick things off, I think I want to keep going with some of the good energy, both that you've probably already established in the sort of design thinking space as a cohort, but then for others in the room as well to create some of that. So to do that, hi Lisa, Tint, there's your option. To do that, you received an email this morning with a link to this Jamboard. Let's see, this Jamboard right here. And I'd like you to please pull out your devices and open that link from the email this morning. And let me know if you didn't get it. And we'll start on frame 1 as we're also getting pizzas and situated and everything. What's your name? Lumquist? Okay. Did I spell Miranda wrong? M-A-R? M-O-R. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Hi. Yeah. Good. You're welcome. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what's your name? Yes. Oh, and Susanna, you probably are gonna be familiar with some of this discussion. Or seeing it from two perspectives, I guess, in a way, with being approved for DIS, isn't it? Also, feel free to stay, but also, I mean, it's gonna be pretty repetitive. Mostly. And you're welcome to take food. Yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing, thanks for joining the Jamboard. I'm seeing some cool places on the screen. South Korea. I recognize, I think, oh, I was gonna say Iceland, but thanks for the sticky note. Australia, that's cool to see. Jordan, Tel Aviv, Mexico. Some are going to Madrid, I know, so that's probably making its way onto the screen as well. Colombia. That's great. Where's this one? Oh, Costa Rica, what do they call those? Cloud forests? Yeah, there's a cloud forest. And even Ghana, okay, awesome. Am I missing one? Where's this? Kenya. Oh, nice. Yeah, so exciting opportunities all around. This is about a diverse a group as we've had yet in our pre-departure orientations, representing sort of the geographic locations anyway. So really good to see. If you had the chance to post your photo, can't find my mouse. There we are. Go ahead and move on to the next frame and think about some what's coming to mind for you right now as you're just thinking about your trip overall. Are there any things that you're worried or concerned about? And use it. You can also use the sticky notes feature here on this frame too. Yep, money and budget. Safety. Finding a community or a sense of community anyway, since some of you may be solo in the countries that you're visiting this summer. Diet restrictions. Learning about housing, yep, sounds pretty important. Yeah, what are travel requirements in today's complicated world of traveling internationally? And you can sort of lump visas and flights into that, I think, but good things. If we're not seeing anything more than that, I see a new one, communicating in a foreign language. That's a concern even for folks who have a lot of preparation and years of study. It worries me every time I go back to places where I've had pretty substantial preparation in the language too. So these are all really, really good things to be thinking about. What about then moving on to the next frame? Things you still need to do to get ready for your time. So here I'm starting to see these similar themes. Visas, health insurance. Yeah, flights and funding. Can I ask what OPI is? Okay, so language placement, you said? Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting part of your program. That's yeah, packing, paying for your program. These are all really good things. Again, preparing for going abroad. What about on the last frame of today's Jamboard? Let's hear some things that you're excited to learn or gain from the program. Or your experience abroad. It might not be a program per se. Oh, wow. Someone's getting a scuba dive certification from their time. That's cool. Immersion, learning the language, building connections. Learning. I like this idea here in the center about getting a different learning perspective from what you could do in class. Learning about the food, yeah, that's a big part of it for sure. A research experience, that would be exciting. Yeah, it kind of would be similar to like a golf type of experience of researching on campus, but you're doing that overseas. That I think I can key on where some of these sticky notes are coming from, because I've had the fortune of meeting a few of you in the room when we've advised, but really great things. And I'm seeing a theme too. There's almost like a common thread for most of these things that you could say I'm concerned about it, but I'm also excited to learn and gain and find myself. Like the note that I see here about how to be alone was also something it can be exciting and something that you gain. some perspective on that, but also something to be have some nerves about, or to think through and have an honest, like, candid conversation with yourself to kind of feel out what you think you might present with in terms of being alone. So all good things. Did I miss anyone's sticky on things to learn or gain from your experience abroad? Independence. Yeah. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and dive right into some of the material here. That was all really great, and hopefully sort of towards the end, I'll allow us to turn to our neighbors and continue talking about plans, and Lisa and I will remain as well for questions until 1:15, but I anticipate wrapping things up in about the next 40 minutes or so. So a note on insurance, and I saw that this was a pretty common thread on the Jamboard, is that what you should know is you have a couple of different options. Okay, and for summer travel, you might have the Smith Health Insurance Plan. If you're covered under the Smith Health Insurance Plan, the coverage does extend overseas, but make sure that what you've paid for extends into the summer months. I know that they have the opportunity for you to pay for just spring, but spring and summer should be included in order for that Smith insurance to go abroad with you. But also, as you're doing that research on whether your premium covers the summer months, also think about kind of what the coverage includes and the care that you think you might need when you're overseas, because that could have an impact on how to submit a claim and sort of what is all included in your coverage. Additionally, if you have coverage that is not the Smith Health Insurance, maybe through a parent plan or something like that, you definitely need to research not only the amount of coverage and how to submit a claim, but also whether your US-based insurance extends to overseas. Okay, and the other good option that you have is, as a student at one of the 5 colleges, we have a service that's already provided called AIG. AIG Travel Guard allows you to register and get some really good insight into country-specific resources and identifying providers and things like that. To give you a better picture of it, I'm just going to go ahead and play a video quickly directly from AIG. And I'm sorry, the screen is, I wish they had like 2 almost to extend that to your side.
For a faculty organizer or a student arranging your own college, whether you are a faculty organizer or a student arranging your own college-sponsored travel more than 100 miles from campus, you'll want to learn more about AIG Travel Guard before you embark on your journey. In this brief video, we will go over who is covered by AIG Travel Guard, what events are covered, and what additional services are provided by AIG to travelers covered by the program. First, let us begin with what exactly AIG Travel Guard is. AIG Travel Guard is an insurance product purchased by your college. Travel insurance can help you when the unexpected occurs, whether you lose your passport, need roadside assistance, or become so suddenly ill that you require a medical evacuation. If you are a student, alum, or employee traveling on business sponsored by Amherst, Hampshire, Smith, Mount Holyoke, or 5 Colleges Inc., you are already covered by the AIG Travel Guard plan. You do not need to do anything more to enroll. Do note that this travel insurance will cover you only for college-sponsored travel, and not any personal travel you may add on to a college-sponsored trip. Let's go over what services your Travel Guard plan includes. AIG Travel Guard has 2 primary forms of service on offer to members: claims-activated coverage in cases of emergency, and supplementary services that can be taken advantage of without initiating a claim. We are going to go over claims-activated services in more detail now. Claims activated services include medical assistance. AIG will help you locate medical providers and will coordinate emergency replacement of prescriptions and medical equipment. AIG Travel Guard also offers a medical expense benefit of $2,500 for some accident-related injuries you may suffer while traveling that would not otherwise be covered by your existing medical insurance. This coverage is limited and should not be confused with actual health insurance, which you should also make sure you have before you begin your travel. Emergency medical evacuation or repatriation is another claims-activated service and includes the coordination and coverage of your safe return home or to the nearest medical facility should you become seriously ill or injured while traveling. You should also open a claim with AIG if you need to be evacuated for a non-medical issue, such as a natural disaster or a coup. While the cost of geopolitical evacuation is not covered by AIG, they will help coordinate the evacuation and will work with the college to get you home safe in the event of a crisis, billing the college after the fact. Know that in this circumstance, your safety is our first priority. Do not hesitate to reach out. To open a claim with AIG, you will want to take the following steps. First, in the event of an emergency, call AIG immediately. The phone number can be found, along with our plan's policy number, on the handout accompanying this video. You will want to save this phone number and the 9-digit policy number in your wallet or phone for easy access when you need them. Once you have called AIG Travel Guard, you will want to call the campus emergency recording line to let us know you have activated the claim. The campus emergency recording line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and is the best way to reach out to your campus in an emergency. Separate from its claims-related services, AIG also offers itself as a travel resource. Members can take advantage of the plan's concierge services, like booking tickets and restaurant reservations through AIG, for no charge other than the cost of the tickets themselves. In addition, AIG Travel Guard can be contacted for roadside assistance, a lost passport, or even stolen luggage. While you will need to pay the regular cost of a tow or replacement passport, AIG is happy to coordinate these services for no additional charge. You can also register for an account on AIG's website for free to view in-depth country reports and city maps to help you prepare for your trips, along with security trainings and specific safety advice. We strongly encourage registering before your trip to take advantage of these resources. Go online to aig.com/US/travelguardassistance to learn more about what AIG Travel Guard has to offer you. If you have any questions, call your study abroad office or reach out to the 5 College Office of Compliance and Risk.
So there you are. That's AIG. There are some resources about AIG Travel Guard on the OIS website under Before You Go and insurance. So if you didn't get the chance to capture like the policy number or the phone number to call, if you need AIG's contact, head over to our website and get those details there. The last option when it comes to insurance to talk about today is just any additional products that you might want to purchase. Did I correctly assume that all of you are on Design Thinking's programs this summer? The 2 of you are not? You all are. Is anyone else with Design Thinking? So I just want to say that the Design Thinking Institute has chosen to cover your group on an additional product called GeoBlue Insurance. You probably got an email about that yesterday. So that's an additional service. It's really a great product, and I think either Jennifer or Emily should be reaching out with some additional resources about that. Okay, and how you're covered there. Outside of being covered by your program from Smith or by the program that you're attending, for example, Tassina, you're going with CIEE this summer, aren't you? Or CET, sorry. And so they may have insurance that they offer or require, in fact, for their programs as well. But in case they don't, and you're still feeling that your US-based health insurance, AIG Travel Guard creates a little bit of unmet need for what your health concerns are. This is a link to requesting a quote for basically a single trip through GeoBlue as well. I guess the best way to think about GeoBlue is that it carries the sort of model that we have here of showing an ID card and then them billing the provider directly, that sort of healthcare payment model. It brings that with you overseas. So you can get a quote from from GeoBlue, sorry, if, as I mentioned, it's not provided by your program, there isn't required insurance by your program already, and you have additional needs based on what your US-based health insurance covers. Okay, so I can share the slides and send that out to anybody who's interested. Insurance is a lot, so I just want to pause there and ask if there are any questions about coverage or medications. The AIG resource is really great for understanding legality and stuff like that through medications. But nothing? Okay, good. So I mentioned doing some research about your US-based health insurance. Again, just important to note that you should be prepared for understanding how to submit claims when you need care abroad, and potentially for that cost to need to be paid upfront. If you don't have something like GeoBlue, and then through your claim process, get a reimbursement later. Sometimes they'll require different documentation depending on which plan it is. So just have a good understanding of that before you travel. Okay, so the next thing on our list is kind of thinking about Title IX and safety as well, too, in a broad sense. And so the best thing I can say about this is that it's good to know your local laws and to understand before things happen, sort of what your protections might be. So just because it's Smith College sponsored travel, the college policy of, the commitment to maintaining that environment that prevents, unreasonable interferences with your learning and stuff, the application of that might look different in your host country. So useful to learn about that. And, if something happens, in the rare case that something were to happen, then first of all, take care of yourself first and foremost, and navigate yourself to a safe place, and then work with someone that you trust, either on the ground, that could be program staff or faculty, or reaching back out if there maybe isn't a person that you have that connection with, to Lisa or myself to talk about next steps. And of course, part of that includes getting the medical attention and then sort of following this procedure to report what has happened. And I think the thing about this that comes to mind for me is that it can seem a little converse in the logic, but actually, increased reports of sexual harassment lead to an increased culture of accountability. And so we don't want those things to occur, but if they do, then reports are the way to lead to more perpetrators seeing their offenses as serious problems. So there's that. I guess I reversed my slides here, but another just moment to note down information about medications. This is a specific just sort of logic tree to think about where AIG can enter the conversation. So if you have things that you have prescriptions for that you need to take abroad with you, the questions that you should be asking yourself are, is it legal for me to bring that medication into my country, the host country? And if so, can you bring a full supply for the time you're away with you? And really, if either of the answers to those questions are no, then discuss that with your doctor and then work on your travel plan from there. AIG can help answer that question. Is the medication legal, and can you bring a full supply? And if you get a yes across the board, then you just get straight to the fun part. All right, talking about care and routines, and the flip side of the coin, because so far we've mainly been talking about sort of physical health, is mental health. And so one of the things that comes to mind for me here is to have the safety knowledge in mind that you can, as a US citizen anyway, register with the local embassy and or consulate that might be nearest to you in your country through what's called the STEP the Safe Traveler Enrollment Program. And that registration basically allows the embassy or consulate to know which nationals of the US to engage with or to reach out to if a local emergency were to take place. If you're not a US passport holder, this is likely also a resource that might be offered by your government as well. Please look into that as well so that you can, like I said, you can have that sort of peace of mind as you travel abroad. Also good to know, just sort of in the nuts and bolts way about lost passports and things like that came up in the AIG video, is that you can always and should probably always carry a photocopy of your important documents around with you, and keep those separate from your originals. Okay, and then I think finding a routine is also probably one of the more important ways to take care of yourself while you're abroad, even if it's a short time. You know, I've been on programs that are 10 or 11 days long and still see some serious disruptions in certain students. And so whatever it is, if it's a run, or if it's a like where and when in my schedule throughout the day can I find time to myself and really just, you know, sort of reflect and do what I need to take care of myself. That's part of routine as well, and it's important when you're thinking about your self-care, because all programs, no matter their length, are going to have a big impact, and that can come with some bumps along the road. Should be expected, and there's ways to navigate that. In fact, I think you all, as this generation of students, have probably a lot more practice in that sense of navigating bumps in the road and sort of just being in different learning environments. And so bring that lesson or those lessons with you when you travel overseas as well. Okay. Another thing about short-term programs is that it can be so easy right now to just stay constantly in touch with folks back here in the US. And I think an important part of this conversation around mental health is just setting the expectation about how often you anticipate being in contact with folks that you're close to back here in the US or anywhere in the world, and keeping it in check so that you can really take away from your time in that country the maximum. And then, yeah, as far as, like I said, the two sides of the same coin here with both physical and mental health, I think it's important to check in with your providers, counselors, all of that right now, and have a plan in mind sort of for what that might look like for you while you're abroad. You also do still have access to resources back on campus too in the summer. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, talking about money and budgeting. You know, a tactic that I've seen a lot of students use in preparation for their program is, of course, to reach out to their banks, and that's important. You might, for your program, be considering opening like a local bank account, or you might just be relying on, like it says here, so ATM withdrawals and card swipes and that sort of thing. So call your banks and understand what your options are for accessing your funds so that they won't shut you off. Been there, not a great idea, not a great experience. And going with that, thinking about sort of when you first arrive, what is your strategy versus sort of for the longer haul when you're there. Sometimes that means withdrawing enough cash at the airport as soon as you land for maybe a day or 2 days, and then again, understanding your bank's policies around like foreign transaction fees and stuff like that, to then switch to maybe purchasing things with a card, or withdrawing larger chunks at a time so that you can budget your money for the rest of the program. Going along with that, like sort of what is your program length and what are your spending habits? Those are important questions to ask yourself and to think about. Will I kind of maintain the same spending habits? And does that mean a meal out every night during the week? Or does it mean that I tend to go pretty frugal and conservative? And will it change? Or you know, will I want to splurge a little bit more often when I'm traveling overseas? And another good thing to note is that as students, there's so many good options in so much of the world to do for free, or in general, even like maybe taking the student aspect out of it. You can get creative, and I think have some early conversations with program staff, or do some research now about how to engage in the culture and do some stuff for fun that comes at less of a cost. And then the student aspect as well, like for sure, always ask for the appropriate discount, or there are resources like the ISIC, the International Student ID card or something like that, ISIC, which in a lot of countries has like basically grants you access to those discount programs automatically if you just sort of flash that card and carry it around with you. And another step to take now early on, I can send you all of this resource. It's located both on our study abroad guide for travelers in general, but also in a Moodle course that we enroll students in, as a budget sheet. And if you haven't, actually some of you in the room for IEGs, you've already been asked to submit a budget sheet for your program. So you kind of understand what your total costs are. But for those of you who haven't received IEG grants or are traveling on other funds, it's a useful exercise to just get that understanding of what are your program fees, for example, and then in addition to those things, what are the expected additional costs versus what is the funding that you have lined up, and finding the happy medium and strategizing if you need to. I'm here for that conversation about filling the gap with outside funding or other opportunities from the college. Questions about money and budgeting. This was an important one on the Jamboard I saw. So did I not touch on something here? Specifics. Great. So this brings us to the idea of thinking ahead already to sort of after your program wraps up and coming back home, and how you can re-engage or continue that learning process even beyond the dates of the program. There's some really great material on the University of Michigan website on resilient travel, and I realized that has a lot to do with taking care of mental health and accessibility and accommodations as well. But I think it lends itself to the conversation as well about sort of how you can engage the communities that you've been working with here at Smith in the conversation of what you learned about being a resilient traveler on your programs too. And I would love to point out here that there are some really interesting, especially in the Boston area, student conferences around life after study abroad. And so as a returnee from summer programs, there's ways that you can, I have a lot of links that I can share, but these generally happen in the fall or spring semester, where they'll offer for students basically like internship mock interviews and resume review sessions and things like that. So some resources to, again, just engage and reflect on the learning, but also plan ahead to how it's going to be incorporated into your job search and your resume and everything like that. So those are all really great things to be thinking about now, even in terms of how it fits into the rest of your plan at Smith. And that might also include future applications to things like the Gilman Scholarship, which is State Department funding, Fulbright program, which is sort of post-undergrad projects for peace. Some of you in the room are already attending praxis internship opportunities this summer, but if you're not, then why not consider that as an option too for terms down the road. Let's see, that pretty much brings us to an end. I just wanted to show some useful contacts up here. So that's including the Title IX coordinator at Smith, Lisa's information, me, and then for international students, of course, Dean Caitlin and Claire's info. Like I said, I've been talking for about 30 minutes or so now. So I want to just turn it back over to you. And you've already sort of started to meet some strangers in the room or sat with friends, but use the rest of the time to ask questions. Lisa and I, like I mentioned, will be here and hanging out to answer those. But in the meantime, yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciated all your time, and I hope this was really helpful to prepare you for your fun and exciting opportunities this summer. Thank you.